in the dark, I play my dreams. Permaculture flows like sweet streams. I'm the daddy with the know-how seed. Creating the world like it's meant to be. Permaculture, P-I-M-P, I'm the king. Wrapping up in everything. Bringing change, making it last. Join the permaculture.
Welcome to episode 424 of the Permaculture Pimpcast, where PIMP stands for Permaculture is My Passion. The only Pimpcast on planet Earth where we discuss permaculture, preparedness, practical living, and lately prostitutes.
Permaculture, P-I-M-P, with soulful rays. In the Pimpcast, where we find our place.
Well, good to be here with y'all on this Monday. So glad we survived so far with all the nonsense going on in the world right now. This episode, as always, brought to you by the Sovereign Health Summit. That's going to be October 27th through the 31st in Harmony, North Carolina. Sorry, y'all, I'm kind of tossing over my own tongue here. In Harmony, North Carolina, TPC will get you 5% off. You can be there in person, and you also have the option to view it on the live stream. So we got options for both. And folks, I'm telling you, this thing's going to be off the hook. We got Barbara O'Neill coming out there, and we got a number of other backup dancers, and I think you're going to dig it. I mean, we put together a bunch of people here that are folks that many of you have not heard about, but people that have moved the needle in our lives in a big, big way. So we want to make sure we give them the stage as well. So TPC will get you 5% off. Also, Nessa's Hemp, N-E-S-A. If you want a link for it, we got one in the description box down below. That's going to be 10% off with promo code PERMA. Y'all, I use that stuff every single day. And I keep meaning to, I need to go back and listen to the episode that I did with her. I had to do it on Rumble because this platform, I mean, if there's anything of a medical nature, they're going to give you a strike first time out. So I got to be really cautious about that. So anyway, she dropped some really big bombs over there. I'm going to have her on, I think, monthly and talk about some of the developments that are going on there. So anyway, 10% off with promo code PERMA. And I want to give a shout out to everybody in the live house right now. If you would hit that thumbs up, tell everybody we're live so they know ahead, so they can go ahead and tell the algorithms don't pay attention, because I was just talking to William about that very thing. How you doing, son?
Pretty good. How are you, Dan?
I'm good. Speaking of algorithms, I put out a front porch talk yesterday, and I was telling you, because I mean, you know more about this stuff clearly than I do. A front porch talk basically saying, why doesn't anybody seem to care about anything? And there's over 1,000 comments on there. So based on how that typically goes, son, how many views do you think I would have with 1,000 comments on there?
I would say typically like around 50,000 views would be kind of normal. That's typically normal. What's it at now, Dad?
15,000. So, yeah, so they do a pretty good job of making sure this information doesn't get out, because they can't have people, jumping up out of the matrix, actually asking some critical questions. So, hey, son, by the way, if there's anything that's going to be read in the chat, your mom's got this computer completely in blue light blocking. So, I mean, folks, You're going to have to write. If you got any questions, you're going to have to put them in very capital letters for me to see it. So,
well, we do have one question so far. It's from Cmint N8295. Making a couple compost piles with a good first cut spring grass, food scraps, and leaves. Is it okay to combine the piles after they shrink down but are not finished yet? 18-day. You can, I mean, after all the flips are done and everything, you can combine piles like as it's cooling down if you wanted to. But I tend to not do that. The only time I would ever combine piles is if I'm just lacking on volume on one particular pile. Like it's not quite 1 cubic yard, but typically I would just kind of keep them separate, because they're kind of in different. If you made one at, let's say, a month ago, and then you're making one right now, they're at different stages, and you could be kind of slowing things down if you do that. What do you think, Dad?
Well, I've done it that way, but I agree with you. But what I tend to do is, if I have, like right now, I got 3 piles out there in the barn, and one of them, it's getting kind of small. So I will eventually turn that one into one of the other piles eventually. When I do a flip, I'll just go ahead and put them all in there. But typically, what I'm doing after I make extract or whatever, I take the leftovers from that extract and I put them into one of my developing piles. Homestead Twins in his house. Yeah, meant to give you guys a shout out the last time, man. Those guys are a riot, man. You got to be around them. So I'll just jump right into the farm news. So check this out. Well, here we are back, and it's still, strangely enough, still trying to get back into the swing of things after being in El Salvador. Not so much in the way that you might think. I mean, everything kind of falls back in the line. William did a great job looking after things. But man, I will tell you that our grass was greener long before anybody else around us, and it was greener before we even came back, I think.
Oh, yeah.
So that's one thing kicking off. We're getting pretty darn close to spring flush around here. Got plenty of moisture, and so I've had the sheep on a 3-day rotation, meaning they'll be in the paddock for 3 days, and then I'll move them. Remember, when it's growing slow, you move them slow. When it's growing fast, you move them fast. So now we're getting to that point where I could be on a 2-day rotation, but I got them in a place where they're up in the woods, and this is area that needs attention. So I'm going to leave them there a little bit longer and let them trample in some of the hay that they don't eat. So I am out there throwing hay because I want that carbon on the ground. So other things going on around here, the little baby sheep are, yeah, man, they're doing good. It cracks me up every evening. You can just get so entertained by watching them hop around. And that's all they do every evening, sometimes in the mornings, but mostly in the evening. When you have baby sheep, it's just so funny. They'll just play, and they literally play. They'll just hop around and stuff like that. So they're doing good. We got one that I think damaged his foot somehow, and I'm still trying to figure out what exactly he might have done. But, Delta Mike Sierra Oscar, and I don't even know if I can say that word on here anymore. Delta Mike Sierra Oscar. If somebody knows what I'm talking about and wants to put that in the chat, that is something you definitely need to have on your homestead, not only for your animals, but you would be astonished at the healing capabilities that you get with stuff like that. So definitely check it out.
If you're talking about just animals, I think we're going to be fine saying it on YouTube because they do sell it at farm stores. Like, that's the intended use, is like for animals on the farm and everything. So I think if you focus on like using that product on your sheep, I don't think we're going to get in any trouble with that. But yeah, somebody commented it in the chat down below.
Delta Mike Sierra Oscar, if you're listening to the audio format. So anyway, that stuff, you want to have it around, folks. You will not believe the therapeutic. I mean, especially in these times where nobody wants to go to a doctor, and you may have, go to Mike Adams' website, and there's entire books over there that you can get for free on how to apply this stuff, how to use it in your own life. And believe me, that is, if I didn't see it with my own 2 eyes, I've seen things that I thought were nothing short of miraculous using that stuff. I mean, the sheep that I honestly thought I was going to have to put down, William, you saw it. I
asked you if you wanted me to go get the rifle.
Yeah, there were maggots growing all up in this sheep, not to try to gross anybody out, but y'all, I was thinking, okay, I said, look, we'll give it one more day. We put that stuff on there, and this sheep, there were no maggots, and it was jumping around the next day. So you want to get that not only for your animals, but for yourself. For those that have been blowing up the email, got good news for you. We got a lot of, I made a bunch of bone sauce. The weather conditions were right, so I was able to get that done. And also some comfrey. So we got both of those at the website, also the rice knives and everything else you might want. So yeah, everybody, if you want some, go check it out over there. Other things that I got going on here, and I got to remind you folks, I know we talked about compost a moment ago. That was one of the things I actually did today, is water my compost. Now, I do mine with soil saviors, even though it doesn't even need it. It did get a little bit drier than I would prefer. Just had so many irons in the fire that I let this one slip by me. So you don't be me, in that regard. So keep that stuff moist. Son, you want to explain the reasons why you don't want your compost to dry out?
Well, yeah, if you let your compost dry out, you're basically letting the organisms dry out. These organisms are like in the high 90s% of water. So if your compost dries out, then you know that your organisms are going to be either already dried out or they're going to be struggling. Now, keep in mind, there's a big difference between like the outer crust of your pile drying out versus your entire pile drying out. So I did have somebody ask me recently if they needed to start over because the outside just crust of it dried out. And in that case, no, you don't need to restart or anything. You just rehydrate it, and the organisms will reinoculate, similar to your soils. So if you have super hot summers, and you haven't had rain in a long time, that first like quarter to half inch, the microorganisms are going to kind of recede down into deeper parts of the soil where there's still moisture and cooler temperatures. Same thing is going to happen in your compost pile, but you still, as best as you can, don't let it dry out.
Yeah, definitely not. Because if they go in the spore, then all of a sudden it's going to be like, depending on the organism, it may take 21 days for this thing to be active all over again. So you don't want to find yourself in that position, especially when you're going to be needing a lot of compost this time of year. So other things, man, I'm struggling to figure out how to do this video, son. I came back with a bottle, one of these deuterium depleted water bottles, the one I was talking to Dr. Jack Cruz about. I filled that thing up with beach sand from El Salvador. And people are probably asking why. Well, I literally came back here, y'all. You want to know, like I've told people, one of the key ingredients in making your compost, if you can get it, especially the good stuff, is volcanic rock dust. Okay. And because it's paramagnetic, and it does, in fact, science really doesn't fully know why it is so effective in electroculture and also in just a regular compost pile. Nobody really knows why. They just know that whenever the higher paramagnetic it is, I can never say that word right, the better your organisms are going to love it. Well, anyway, son, I came back here and I did that little experiment that Jack Cruz talked about, where you take a magnet, you put down some of your regular soil, and then you put a magnet on it, and then take some of this sand, that most people think has absolutely nothing in it, which you and I know is not the case. You take this sand, and I put a magnet over it, and I'm like, good night, man. It's all over this magnet. It's just absolutely pulling it all up. And so I'm trying to think about how, and people wonder why things do so much better in volcanic soil. Well, folks, that's a lot of your answer right there, but I'm trying to figure out I might have to break that down into a short, but I'm trying to figure out a way to make this a pretty good instructional video in explaining that this is why you want volcanic rock dust in your pile, because all of your organisms are absolutely going to love it. You got any ideas on that one, son?
As far as the magnetism, all that type of stuff, I don't fully understand it, but if we look at everything that we know about electromagnetism and all that type of stuff, it's pretty extensive. Not me personally, but just humans in general. It's pretty extensive. And then if you go over to the alternative, which is gravity, we don't know anything about it. But apparently that's what's keeping everybody, on Earth and staying put and all that type of stuff. Even though electromagnetism tends to fit the bill a little bit better. But as far as like how all that stuff works, I'm not entirely sure. I really don't know.
Yeah, the jury's still out on that, but somebody also mentioned here. Now, I'm glad you brought this question up. I'm sorry, I can't read your name, but it says, I bought a bag of volcanic rock dust to add to my trees and garden. So here's what you want to do. So here's the experiment I did, and I think you can replicate it to find out whether or not you got good stuff. Now, take a really strong magnet, stick it on your regular soil, see if anything attracts to it. Now, go out there and take it and put it on your volcanic rock dust. It should, if it's legit, it should be going to that magnet. I know because I went out there and I did it, and to a much lesser degree, it was attracting to the magnet. The stuff I got from Dr. Will did the best, but none of it was in the ballpark of the soil that I brought back from El Salvador. So, I mean, yeah. So it, the really, really awesome paramagnetic stuff, it will deflect the compass needle on a compass when you get it close enough. I mean, that's how strong some of this stuff is. So, yeah. Anyway, try that little trick, and maybe before you buy it, because typically you buy this stuff. I mean, they may sell it in different ways. Mostly it comes in a 50-pound bag, but go out there with a magnet. And if it's not attracting to the magnet, then you might want to take that stuff back. So I would have let you know before, but this is stuff I've recently discovered myself. So I'm going to let everybody else know about it. What's going on? Oh, one more thing, son. Mm-hmm. Speaking about the therapeutic effects of El Salvador. Now, folks, it might interest you to know my wife wears reading glasses. Michelle wears reading glasses when we're here in North Carolina. She did point out when we were down there, in fact, that all of a sudden she didn't need her reading glasses. And this is one of the things Dr. Jack Cruz talked about, as far as, the therapeutic effects of not only the high magnetic nature of that volcanic soil, but also unobstructed sunlight that's not being bombed out by chemtrails every day. Well, while we were down there, remember, he talks about light, water, and magnetism. That's if you want to stay healed, that's what you got to employ, or at least as much of those things as you possibly can, which, I never did get around to asking him, at least not to the extent that I wanted, but I wanted to ask him about, well, hey, is that the reason why they're blocking out the chemtrails? And I didn't quite ask it the way I wanted, so I didn't quite get the answer I wanted. But anyway, when we were down there, I think about a week and a half into it, Michelle's like, I don't need my reading glasses anymore. I'm like, really? Wow, that is absolutely incredible. So not only was I getting massive therapeutic effects, I mean, sprints up and down that beach, and I couldn't even wear myself out. Son, I'm serious. I could not wear myself out doing even sprints. It was like, you would sprint and you would think, if you push yourself as hard as you can, by the time you come to the end of it, you should feel winded, right? I didn't. And I'm like, okay, this is unbelievable. Well, your mom, her eyesight went back completely fine.
Well, the other half of that, Dad, of the sprints is that you weren't sore the next day.
No.
That's even more shocking.
Yeah, I wasn't sore, and I haven't done sprints in at least 2 or 3 years. So that was really something. And then, but as far as your mom, to kind of close that door, well, folks, it might interest you to know, here we are back in North Carolina. I guess it's been 2-3 weeks. Who's counting? And she's back to needing her reading glasses again. So what does that tell you? What does that tell you? I mean, it's not like we weren't working down there. I mean, we were still doing the same kind of work we normally do. It just goes to show you about the environment that the people, the powers that shouldn't be, have created in this country. She was completely healed down there, came back, and then now she's back to needing her reading glasses again. So Let me kick it on over to you, son.
Well, real quick, you said who's counting? Mom's counting. I guarantee you that.
Yeah,
Mom's counting how long you guys have been back in North Carolina. But as far as here, y'all, this is probably one of the worst. Since I've been a little kid, this was probably one of the worst allergy seasons I've had in a very, very long time. Like, I'm waking up in the middle of the night and I'm just completely clogged, just leaking everywhere. And out of my face leaking. And so if you see me having to mute real quick, or if I start sneezing or anything like that, I'll do my best to hit the mute button. But I don't know if anybody else's allergies are bothering me, but they're absolutely killing me right now. And then other than that, got the entire garden here at the house planted out and everything. So we've got like a plethora of tomatoes, and I'm just trying to grow as much food as we possibly can in the space that we have, and even in places that we like, spaces that we don't have. And then out of the demonstration site, got a bunch of food growing out there. I got to remind myself to leave space for sweet potatoes, because every time I go out, I'm picking up more plants, just more options. Like today, I picked up a what's called red ginger, or a shampoo plant. And it's like a plant that just produces shampoo. Once you have like the actual flowers start coming off, they look like a very gentle pine cone. You just grab that and you squeeze it, and you can either collect it, or you can just kind of keep it in your hands, and then you can wash your hair with it and everything. But it's a pretty cool plant. My wife has been wanting that plant for quite some time now, but I finally found a place that had it that was available, and pretty doggone big size too. So if you're looking for like, non centralized way to make shampoo, or find a good source for shampoo, grow some shampoo plants. They are they're hardy from zone 8 to like 10. So if that just means if you're in somewhere that's like a colder environment, you just got to bring it in during the winter, and then it does just fine as a household plant too. And it thrives in like shady conditions. So pretty awesome plant. If you have the shade, if you have the space, I would definitely try to grow some of that shampoo plant, because look at all the crap that they put in your shampoo. If atrazine makes the frogs gay, guess what that shampoo does?
Yeah.
It completely wrecks you. But look at all those different ingredients. and you realize like there's a bunch of hormone disruptors in there. There's just straight up toxins in there. So an alternative is just use that shampoo plant. Other than that, yeah, just trying to get things in the ground, get everything set up so we can like water passively and everything. And then I'm about to get into making a bunch of compost and put out a bunch of compost videos. Like a video I did the other day was like a bunch of compost ingredients that you typically interact with on a day-to-day basis that you could use for compost. Because one thing that I've noticed is a lot of people are pretty limited on what they think they can use for compost, especially if they're coming from more the traditional gardening route where they think it can only be like, leaves and grass clippings and it takes like 9 months to make and all that. So give them a bunch of options. This next video that I'm going to do is like all the materials you need before making your compost, not like the organic materials, but like a compost cage, a pitchfork, the buckets, things like that. And then after that, I'll start getting into basically doing a very, very exact recipe where if you follow this recipe, you will have guaranteed compost by the end of the whole cycle and everything. So yeah, just compost. And then also at the same time, having issues with Etsy. I keep getting emails asking about the Moringa and the Good King Henry seeds. Keep having issues with Etsy. As soon as I can get this figured out with Etsy, it'll be up. People on Patreon will know before the regular population will. And you can actually become a Patreon member for free. You just don't have access to all of the content. If you do want all the content, then you can get on for as little as $5 a month. But that's what's going on here. There was a question up here, Dad, if you wanted to.
I'm on it. I see.
Okay.
Well, let me first say, for those that are on my Patreon, they made it nearly impossible for me to respond to people. Yep. I can put up videos and they're making it. I mean, I don't even know that you left a message. So I don't know how many people unsubscribed because they thought I was just not paying attention. No, I read and try to respond to everything if I can, but they don't let you. So, or at least not me. So that's one of the problems I'm having. So question is azomite the same as volcanic rock dust? I really don't know. Nancy, sorry, I don't have a good answer for you there. Silver Sage says they watched a new Naked Gun movie with Liam Neeson and Pamela Anderson. They have many predictive programming, including the healthy effects of red light, and talked about increase in testosterone. Well, maybe they're talking about the decrease in testosterone because that seems to be the number one problem we have right now. A whole bunch of guys are rolling around here with some limp noodles, if you know what I'm talking about. All right. So, yeah, and then don't think it ain't coming from all the stuff we're talking about, the stuff that's dropping from the sky, the EMFs. Folks, I mean, the EMFs are doing a number on a whole lot of people out there. So, yeah, you got to try to do the best. I mean, I sent William this thing the other day about putting your phone in your pocket and what that does to you. Women put it in their bra. Please don't do that, ladies. I mean, what is that?
A fanny pack. Yep, this is a fanny pack. If you go to Highland Tactical, you can get a pretty decent sized fanny pack that also has a spot for any kind of concealed carry that you'd want to carry. I mean, it fits like even a Glock 19, which is considered a full size handgun. So, yeah, that's what I'm going to start. I'm going to set that thing up, and that's exactly what I'm going to start doing. Because there was an increased colon cancer, and it was like, it lined up perfectly. Like if you carried your phone on the right side, you're getting colon cancer on the right side. If you carry it on the left, it's getting colon cancer on the left. And it's not just a little increase. It's like a drastic increase in colon cancer.
Well, son, I would also advise you to, as often as you can, put that thing in airplane mode. And even in airplane mode, folks, you're still getting text. So it's still broadcasting. It's still pinging from one time to the next. The next time I see you, bring that fanny pack with you, and we'll take a look at it with the we'll check and see, because there's a whole lot of people that sell Faraday bags and they don't work. If you can get a phone call through that bag, it ain't working. There's a whole lot of people selling some junk out there, and that really burns me up when it comes to something like this and they're selling junk. All right, y'all, coming up soon, Mountain Readiness. William and I are going to be there. We're going to process a sheep and show you how to do it from start to finish. It's a method you can use no matter the animal. So you learn on a sheep, you can do it on anything. I mean, you could do it on a moose if you want it. Still the same principles. You're going to break it down exactly the same way. So we're going to take one of these no account sheep that I got down here. And I'm talking about the ones that need to go in the freezer anyway. And I don't know if we're going to eat the whole thing right there on the spot or what, but anyway, we're going to process him there. I don't know what T has in mind, but maybe we'll just go ahead and eat him too. I don't know. Usually when you get a ruminant animal like that, you want to let them set up for a while, unless you're going to put them in chili or something like that. You usually want them to. You're going to want to hang that sucker for at least, I like 21 days. I mean, you can go even further. But anyway, if we eat them on the spot, I ain't gonna pass it up. Anyway, that's going to be May 1st through the 3rd in Harmony, North Carolina. Remember, Mountain Readiness, the best homestead preparedness festival you've never heard about, many of you. And it's got the best lineup out there I think I've ever seen at any of these things. So yeah, go out there, support them, go check them out. You're going to be glad you did. Also,
hold on, Dad. Hold on, before we move on, there's also a bunch of other awesome things that are going on at that festival. You can learn how to forge a knife if you want to. That's a class that's being taught there. You can learn how to track someone if you want to. That's a class that's being taught out there. And then afterwards, there's still events going on after the festival. There's a thing called Troy's Gate, where you carry your concealed weapon and you go through like this testing process to see how you actually respond in those scenarios. And it's as close as you can get to the real deal. And then there's AR-15 for women. So it's taught by a dude, but it's all women's course, because let's be honest, a lot of guys can be jerks when it comes to guns, or just give bad information, because it's the manly thing to just inherently know how to operate weapons and everything. But there's a combat pistol that's going to be that next Tuesday. There's a bunch of things out. It's a perfect combination of homesteading and preparedness. But as you were saying, Dad, sorry.
Yeah. Well, also, I'm seeing some comments out here. Ginseng lowers colon cancer risks. That's what somebody's saying in the comment as well. Yeah, I would suggest going to check out Jack Cruz as well. You'd be shocked what sunlight does for you, and then you'll know why they're blocking this stuff out, especially the morning sun, what that does for you. And folks, there is a reason why, I mean, for crying out loud, why they're blocking this thing out. And they don't want you to see it in the morning, especially. Anyway, Wave Watch, Billy 100, get $100 off. William's holding his up right now. Got mine downstairs. Believe me, I don't leave this house. I don't ever go to town without that thing. I kid you not. With all the weirdos and stuff running around these days, y'all, I need all the patience I can get. And believe me, I put that thing on the love setting. So it helps to kind of enhance what I should already have there. But it can be a risk sometimes when you're in a town and you're surrounded by a bunch of hoople-headed Marchies. So I got to do what I can. Anyway, Billy 100 will get you $100 off of that. And then Soil Saviors, y'all, I talked about it earlier. We've got a link for it down below. If you're not out there making your own compost or don't know how, or you want to add a little more oomph to it, because Dr. Will also puts volcanic rock dust in there and a lot of extremophiles, it's only going to enhance your compost anyway. And folks, we got to be thinking about that stuff, especially in light of what's going on in the world. All right, so let's get into the good news here. All right, here's one that's a little bit off the beaten path. So Barry Manilow announces his first studio album in almost 15 years. Yeah, you heard me right, folks. Why on earth would I talk about Barry Manilow? I mean, first of all, you look at modern pictures of this guy, and I thought it was a puppet. I mean, I'm like, is this like one of those wax portraits of somebody? I mean, the guy's definitely been under the knife a number of times, but honestly, I've always admired Barry Manilow. I know everybody thinks I'm joking, but I'm dead serious. I've always admired him because the guy had, at best, he was a great songwriter, no doubt about that. Yeah, he could have made a living doing that. But he was, the most unlikely person that would ever become a star. So it goes to show you that even if you're Barry Manilow, man, or somebody like him, or you think, I don't have the looks, I don't have this, I don't have that. Well, clearly, look, I'll just give it full disclosure. Whenever they do that Dirty Santa game, I had this Barry Manilow's greatest hits that I'd give to somebody under that Dirty Santa thing. And somehow that thing just boomeranged right back to me all those years I was playing that game. But anyway, some people think he's a laughing stock. I thought he had some good talent in terms of a songwriter, not necessarily a singer, but it just goes to show you, hey man, somebody like him can make it. Everybody else has a chance as well. So I know that was a little bit off the beaten path, but when I saw that, I was like, yeah, you know what? Good for him, man. Like I said, he looks like he just came out of that Madame Tussauds wax museum, but hey man, just keep on rocking on. Anyway, here's the next good news story, but I'm going to throw a little caveat in it. So Trump walked back his comments about, being, that laying waste to the infrastructure of Iran in terms of their power distribution. As soon as Iran basically came out and said, all right, don't start no SH and there won't be no IT. Iran said, okay, you do that, we're going to make sure we wipe out everybody else's stuff. Folks, nobody's in the mainstream media is going to tell you this, and it might sound weird coming from a former soldier like me. Iran's already won this thing. They could drop a nuke on Tehran tomorrow, and it still ain't opening that strait. And if you look at what they initially said, now Trump's like, we're negotiating. Well, if you look at the Iranian news, which nobody ever does, they're saying, hold on, we ain't got no negotiators talking about nothing. I don't know what he's talking about. So 5 days, huh? He's going to put it off for 5 days. And now all of a sudden, the market was projected to tank. And then all of a sudden this morning, what happened? He put out that news and the markets, everything did well. Price of gas dropped. But here's what you didn't know, and here's what the prostitutes won't tell you. This is coming from former Navy SEAL Matt Bracken, super, uber, duper smart guy. He says 5 minutes before the president announced a halt to the attacks in Iran, someone placed a $1.5 billion bet on the stocks going up. And this was 5 minutes. Yeah, 5 minutes before he announced it. So it had to be somebody in that room before Trump walked out. Now, the only reason I'm saying this, the reason I'm saying is good news that, hey, we're not going to, because if he did what he said he was going to do and Iran did what they said they were going to do, folks, we're talking Mad Max all through the Middle East, and it would catch up with, and not to mention Europe as well, probably to a certain extent Africa, and then later on we'd be hitting it too. I mean, if they did what they said they were going to do, well, it's not happening, but I did see news reports not long before coming on saying that Israel said they gave the middle finger to Trump and said, okay, we're going to go ahead and start blasting Iranian stuff. So at this point, it's too early to know if those things are even legit. If anybody knows in the chat, please let me know. But it seems as if this thing has all the potential. But I did want to point that out, son, because check this out. Nobody's pointing out how much money the Trump family has made, and I'm talking about his kids, with every one of these every time he gets up to the mic, strangely before then, all of a sudden, people in his family, bearing Trump, I don't even know how many millions, maybe even billions that kid's made at this point. He just turned 20. So put his little Nephilim-looking butt on the first thing smoking over to Iran. Put him on there. Yeah, I tell you what, he'd probably be the first one hit because that dude is definitely a skyscraper. Maybe he's got that Nephilim gene in there. Anyway, all I know is every time you turn around before Trump makes some kind of announcement like that, everybody was expecting the market to tank. All of a sudden, back on top again. Now, whoever put that $1.5 billion in there is crapping in tall cotton, if you know what I'm talking about. But nobody's ever talking about this, and this keeps happening over and over and over again, and a lot of his kids are profiting. Look, folks, for all of you to say, oh, you're a Trump tart, look, I came down twice as bad on Obama and definitely that idiot we had in there before, Biden. I don't see a distinction between any of them. Son, you got anything to say about any of that?
If anybody wants like a kind of morbid entertainment, you can bet on all of this stuff using Kalshi. There's this website called Kalshi where you can bet on anything. It's not just sports games. It's not any of that. It's like you can bet on like real world events. And you can make some money that way if you want to. If you're pretty good at predicting how these things are going to go down, you might want to check it out. Could be, I mean, the fiat currency is useless anyway. Also, right now is a really good time to buy silver if anybody's interested in that.
Or no.
Or what was that?
Or not. It may go lower.
Yeah. But yeah, if you want a morbid sense of entertainment, you can be just like the elites, and you can bet on these scenarios as well. Just do it over on Kalshi.
Yeah, there's a lot of awesome comments here in the chat. I won't be able to go to all of them, but I do want to point this one that Lynn pointed out. Said, husband always carried his phone in his shirt pocket, and he died of lung cancer. Folks, I'm telling you, there is a massive correlation to a lot of this stuff, and the powers that shouldn't be aren't telling you about it. Now, there are people like Dr. Group, Dr. Artis, Dr. Cruz. He's one of the biggest proponents out there because he's actually providing the science behind it. And how people like Robert O. Becker, who wrote The Body Electric, described all the way back in the 70s with the sanguine antenna up in, I want to say, Michigan, that the deleterious effects that this would have on health were unbelievable. So, folks, think about, I mean, you're just going to have to be more purposeful about what you're doing. I put this thing in airplane every single opportunity I can. And when I do use it, 99% of the time, I hope I'm grounded. I mean, I try to be grounded because that's at least protecting you a little bit. But honestly, put that thing in airplane mode, folks, and they're getting worse. In fact, France banned the latest iPhone from even coming into France. They said, no, you're not selling that thing here until you do something about the radiation coming off this thing. So it's a big thing there. Everybody seems to have their stuff together except for us. All right. So last good news story here. Kitchen Warriors, everyday foods that can fight chronic inflammation. Okay, some of those foods, I'll just, because we're kind of running along here. Turmeric berries, because they have the anthocyanins, different color berries, of course. Well, I guess berries would be different colors. Leafy greens, sulforaphane, ginger, garlic, nuts, depending on where you get those nuts, y'all. And peanuts ain't typically a nut. Cacao, has the flavanols. I mean, those are some of the big things you can use out there. Eating fatty fish, flaxseed, walnuts, organic. Obviously, just because it says, you want to make sure your source on all this stuff is on point, folks. Can't stress that enough. All right. Well, ordinarily I go to my man Eric, but he is on assignment out of the country right now. So anyway, that brings me to my latest sponsor, which is, who am I going to pick today? Da, 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 da. All right. How about EMP Shield? Haven't talked about those guys in a while. Okay. Perma will get you $50 off. I've been a journeyman electrician for over 30 years now. And folks, I'm here to tell you, they got the best thing on the market by far. Now, considering what's going on in the world, you might want to think you might ask yourself, is my home, is my car, is everything else EMP proof? Well, that's what they get you squared away with at EMP Shield. Perma will get you $50 off. All right, so we're going to jump right into this. I know we've done similar programs like this before, but we got so many new people coming in and out. I felt like we need to hit it again, but in a different kind of way. So we never did like a top 10 list of anything like that. And I don't share my list. Every time William and I do this, we never really share our list with one another. In fact, we don't at all. I just make a list of 10. He makes a list of 10. And if he covers one that I do, then I just don't cover that. So it always works out. So it also allows me to be able to pick my 5 best. Look, folks, I don't need to tell everybody. I mean, the people that have watched us for a while realize that we raise all of our animals for free, or we've shown you how to do it actually on YouTube. A lot of the newer people into this space, or the way the world was back then, is not the way it is right now. So we need to revisit these topics from time to time solely because, folks, we are on a knife's edge in so many different ways. Folks were already having a hard enough time putting bread on the table. I had one comment today. Guy says, man, this is costing me $80 more a week of money I don't have. It was got to come from somewhere. And I remember years ago, back when I was an apprentice, I remember gas got up to $3 a gallon, and I was an apprentice electrician at the time. And I'm like, man, and I'm driving 2.5 hours one way just to get to work. And we were like, okay, can we go to 4 10s? That'd be one less day to drive. So work basically 4 10-hour days. Now, most employers are reluctant to do that, especially when you live in the building trades industry, because they know that efficiency drops off at about 8 hours. So that's why they're reluctant to go to a 4-10 shift. And so it also demonstrated to us how little the contractor cared about us, because I'm like, okay, man, you're not losing any money on this, but all of us are having to drive 2.5 hours one way to get to work. I remember I was driving from Mustang to Ada, Oklahoma, and that is a long flipping drive, 2 hours one way for an 8 hour. So then it's going to get to the point, even back then, it was getting to the point where it doesn't even make sense to keep this job. So, we ended up doing some carpooling and stuff like that. And so we made it work. But now we're in a place where everything is through the roof right now. And if it gets any higher, it's going to get crazier. And William and I were talking beforehand. So many people say, well, I got my own chickens. Well, 9 out of 10 times, or maybe even 10 out of 10 times, how many people are raising chickens without buying feed?
Yeah.
Unless you're using our methods or something very close to it, you're spending money on feed. Okay. So let's just get down to brass tacks here. So right out of the gates, folks, I'm going to tell you the places that I know are nonstop. You can you can absolutely get all the feed you need for all the pigs and chickens you ever want. And maybe even for yourself if things get that bad. But right off the bat, my number one pick right out of the gates is Chipotle. Why Chipotle? Number one, I hit them up and I had the general manager around here willing to work with me. I mean, one visit from a Chipotle alone is enough to feed 100 birds and 6 full-grown pigs at the time. Just one visit, maybe 2 per week. Small price to pay for that much food. And I'm talking, look, Chipotle doesn't use GMO stuff. So that's why that was my number one choice. Now, you're going to have to talk to them, and then you might even hear the word no. But guess what? They got flip-top dumpsters back there. So you think I'm taking no for an answer? What are you going to do? Take me to jail because I got food out of your dumpster? Folks, you would not believe the amount of food I would get in one. I would fill up the entire back of my truck. And at the time, it was enough to feed all the meat birds and all the pigs that we had for a solid week. And that was maybe once or twice a week that I would go there. So Chipotle right out of the gates, y'all, like I said, it's non-GMO. There's so many beans and rice in there. It's better than the food you're going to give them. And chickens will eat it too. In fact, that was where William figured out that we can get birds out earlier if we feed them rice because it looks like maggots and they're hardwired to eat maggots. So that's how we were able to get the birds. That was his discovery. So anyway, son, that was my number one. Go ahead.
So on the maggot topic, this is my number one is like if you have chickens specifically, you can set up a bug zapper. So if you set up a bug zapper right outside your chicken coop every night, they're going to get a whole ton, especially if you live around here, they're going to get a ton of bugs that just drop right there underneath the bug zapper. But on top of that, you can also do things like black soldier fly larvae or even just straight up maggots. And it's super simple. Black soldier fly larvae, if you live here, you're going to have to, they're seasonal because they can't overwinter here. But if you're in warmer climates, you have black soldier flies all year long. But one thing that we do always have are flies and maggots. So you can do essentially the same thing with the maggots. They're just going to be a little bit smaller. But there's a bunch of videos on how you can set up your black soldier fly larvae farm. What we did at Jeff Lawton's farm was basically had like a 2-liter, put some like chicken organs that we weren't going to eat in there, just let it decompose, the flies find it, and then they lay eggs, and then they hatch out, and then they just drop right in there with the chickens, and the chickens are just kind of waiting around, like around the bottle, just waiting for maggots to come out, or in that case, black soldier fly larvae to pop out. But that's a fantastic food source, high protein food source for your chickens. So you can use bug zappers or grow your own maggots / black soldier fly larvae if you want to. On to you, Dad.
Yeah, real quick on these questions. We planted moringa this week from seed. Where can I buy Williams moringa seeds?
I don't have it set up right now. There's some issues with Etsy and them working with my bank that we're trying to get sorted out and figured out. But that's the holdup right now is Etsy and my bank. But it'll be on Etsy, and I'll be sure to let everybody know once they're available. But thank you.
Rodney asked a question that I'm glad you brought it up, Rodney. He says, when gathering free food, what are the hours we're talking about? Okay. Glad you asked that question. Whenever you approach a restaurant or anything like it, definitely hit them up on a weekdays between the hours of 2 p.m. and 4 p.m. It's going to be the time of week. It's going to be preferably on a Monday or Tuesday because that's when they're going to be least busy. That's when you want to try to approach these folks. If you go hit them at lunch rush, folks, their brains are not even wired to do that. So yeah, that's where you're going to have to make your pitch. In fact, I really need to do an entire webinar on the do's and don'ts. And by the way, folks, when you're approaching somebody, never, ever, ever tell them you're going to feed it to your animals. Or I guarantee the answer will be no right out of the gates. You're not lying. You tell them, look, I'm going to make the world's best compost out of it. In fact, I even got a shirt from Jack Spirko. He made it for me. It's called Carbon Capture Compost. Okay. I don't own the company. The company doesn't even exist, but they don't know that. I go in there and, talk to these folks, say, look, man, I'm turning this. And that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm turning it all into compost. So yeah, good question there. I'll try to get a couple more of these as they're relevant. All right. So the next one I'm going to pick here is, and this is in no particular order. It's not like a top 10 list. Bakeries and donut shops. I'm saying donut shops, bakeries, first of all, if it's a mom and pop. Well, let me back up. Even if it ain't a mom and pop, folks, do you have any idea how much bread they throw away at places like Panera Bread? Do you have any idea how much? And yeah, you may have to jump in the dumpster. And there's been more than once I've had to crawl over crackheads over there with needles all over the place on the outside of the dumpster sleeping. I mean, I kid you not. Folks, do you have any idea how many animals I've fed just from Panera alone, even though that's not my favorite place to go to? But I filled up the entire back of my truck on more than one time on just one visit to a Panera. It got so bad with the bums in Asheville that they started locking the dumpster. But hey, man, you think I won't go over? Look, if you take me to jail for getting food out of a dumpster, man, just send my mail to the county jail if it's come to that. But anyway, it's not just Panera, but you're going to find out that in a lot of these mom and pops places, if you can make them silent partners, you're going to have a yes a whole lot more often. So there's a whole lot of mom and pop kind of bakeries around here. And it's gotten to the point where I don't even solicit them anymore because I got more than I could use. One bakery alone in West Asheville, that bakery alone was enough to handle all the chickens you may have. I mean, you could easily feed, 30 to 50 chickens per week just out of that place alone. That's just one place. So what you want to do is you can't be greedy. From time to time, you're going to want to bring them some of the bounty from your farm. You want to let them know why they're going. It's a little bit of effort, but it means all the difference in the world when you're a business owner. So they got their separate little thing over there, and it's just for me. You want them to feel good about doing it. So every once in a while, you bring them in some eggs. What else do you grow there? Oh, hey, you know what? I brought a whole 5-gallon bucket full of peaches. They can put that in their salad, and they can put it on the menu because they make a new menu every week. What else? Blueberries, tons of those. Strawberries, when we had them, brought those in. Honey. Oh, good night, man. They fall over themselves over this honey. So you want to make, if it's a mom and pop establishment, it's not just what you don't want it to be a zero-sum game. You want it to be a mutualistic relationship. So you're going to want to bring them stuff from time to time. And then if there's things that other things, let's say you don't have anything to bring, make sure you clean up around their place. Spend 5 minutes. Yeah. 5 minutes. Just pick up the trash. And then definitely get the stuff out front. You want them to see you doing it. You want to be a blessing to them. And then also, the reason I'm not concerned about some of this stuff is, folks, I make myself a blessing in ways when I can sit there and save them $70,000 in electrical work that they didn't have to pay for. You think I'm at the top of their list? So be a blessing to them. All right, so let me kick it on over to you.
So this is going to work for like chickens specifically, but the compost that you can make with the scraps. And I first should say, feed your chickens everything but chicken. If it's not chicken, give it to them, because even if they don't eat it, it's going to get turned into compost, and that's going to be beneficial. But in the process of making the compost, like if you're doing the chicken tractor on steroids, the food scraps that you give them plus the biology within the compost is a complete diet for them. So it's one thing to do just the food scraps. That works. And depending on your setup, that might be the best way to go, is just do the food scraps, like if you have them following your ruminants and everything. But if you're doing the chicken tractor on steroids, or if you have the opportunity to switch over to the chicken tractor on steroids, which can be stationary or mobile, then you can make a very, very complete diet for the chickens with the combination of the food scraps, providing like carbs and some fat, plus the protein coming from the compost piles in the form of like legitimate just biology, the microbes that are living within the compost. And you'll notice if you're doing the chicken tractor on steroids, week 2 and 3 are going to be their favorite compost piles because they're the most biologically active piles. They will run past the food scraps that you give them to go to those compost piles and start breaking those down because they have the most amount of microbes in there. Yeah, so the compost. And then cool thing about, going the compost route is that I haven't visited a farm once that wasn't in need of compost. Every farm typically is going to need compost, unless you've just been at this for a while and you got everything inoculated. Everybody's going to benefit from having and making their own compost. So yeah, compost is another way to feed specifically chickens. That's not going to work very well on your pigs.
Yeah, Rodney also said one of our daughters worked at Panera Bread at 2 a.m. They bag everything and leave it out there for the food pantries. Yeah. See, that's one of the things they do. But check this out. Some of these mom and pop bakeries, no matter what, they're always going to have things that they don't even want to give to the homeless shelters. Even if it looks off, they won't give it to them. So they'll put it in the dumpster because they don't want the reputation, you're always going to have something that doesn't look right. The reputation of giving just the nasty stuff to the homeless shelters will get out there. So they tend not to do that. So it's the stuff they're throwing away is the things that are a little more unsightly. And it could be everything from cinnamon rolls to bread, you name it. So I found it all throughout there. But like one of the bakeries, one of the bakeries I work with, they don't even give it. And the reason why is because they're like, if it's off, we don't want them thinking for a minute that, hey, they're bums. That they can eat our scraps. We don't even give it to them. So that's part of the mindset in there. So next one I got here, and this is a big one here, folks, colleges and elementary schools. Why? Okay, I told this story a while back, but there's probably a number of others that haven't heard it. So I'll try to do it quickly. University of Asheville, North Carolina, was wanting somebody to come get their food scraps. And so I called up the lady that was running the program. Michelle had discovered this. I call up and she says, I tell her what I do. I tell her how I make all this stuff in the compost. And she says, okay, sounds like you're the one we need to talk to. And she says, is $1,000 a month enough? And I'm like, what, me paying you? She's like, no, what we would pay you to come get it. And I was speechless on the other side of the phone because I was like, what? She must have thought this guy, he must be really, really challenged because I didn't even know how to process it. I'm like, hold on, and then finally I managed to say, well, I might be able to make that work. She says, that's just for now. We might be able to find more money. And I said, how much are we talking about? She says like 600 pounds a day of organic scraps, food scraps, because these highfalutin nouveau almondine thin crust bottled water deep fried city food kids, they don't eat that garbage we used to have anymore. They want some of this foo stick your pinky up kind of stuff. And they said they would separate it and do the whole 9 yards. And I'm like, 600 pounds a day? Okay. And then so I had to kind of go back to them and say, at the time, I just wasn't geared up for that. But think about it, folks. If you could score a deal like that, you think you might be able to sell some to your other farmer buddies out there that might want it, sell it to them at a major discount, and plus you're making money on the side. So those opportunities exist. And the reason why I say elementary school, go to every elementary school, open up the side of the dumpster. What are you going to see? You're going to see milk plumb up to the doors because they can't reserve it after the kids don't drink it. So they throw that out there. You know what? Your omnivores will drink that and eat it. So you could easily go up to that school and say, look, instead of throwing this away, let me do something. And then if they give you any lip over it, go to the school board and tell them, look, here are the pictures I took of all this money you're throwing away at the taxpayer. I got a way to recycle this and make soil out of it at a time where we ain't got nothing coming across the Pacific or Atlantic right now. And then all of a sudden they're going to be singing a different tune. So anyway, that's why I say colleges, folks, they will work with you. Everybody wants to appear like they're green these days, and you can make that work in your favor. Go ahead, son.
So if you go to church, typically on either Wednesdays or Sundays, if it's a smaller church, typically have some sort of potluck going on. And there's typically a couple of people who always bring food that nobody's going to touch. See if you can take the leftovers from some of those potlucks, like the ones that have been like completely skipped over, or some of the scraps or food waste and everything like that. See if you can get the leftovers from the potluck and bring it back to your animals if you wanted to. Typically, I would say like most potlucks that I've been to, there's always like more food other than like a handful of times. Unless this one doctor's wife in Texas is setting up the potluck, there's going to be more food than was necessary to feed everybody. See if you can get and that's going to happen every week, typically on some of these smaller churches. That's a weekly potluck of food scraps that you can go and get, and or you can just bring home with you if at all possible, and then be open and honest to everybody. Be like, hey, since it's a church and it's not like some organization that could potentially get sued or anything like that, tell the church members and stuff, say, hey, whatever food scraps from this potluck, if you guys don't want it, let me know. Don't throw it away, and I'll take it home and feed my chickens and whatever other animals. And then in exchange, you could share some of what you're producing with the other church members if you want to. But every church potluck I've ever been to, there's been a ton of leftover food afterwards, just because some of these people cook in bulk.
Yeah, that's a good one there. Here's another one that could go very much hand in hand there, and I'm talking about discount grocery stores. Okay, for two reasons. Number one, they're the last user of that product. The only reason it's there in the first place is because one of your top of the line grocery stores couldn't take it. So from there, it goes in the dumpster. Same thing for a lot of homeless shelters and stuff like that. It's going in the dumpster. Both of those places are jackpots in a big, big way, especially when a lot of the homeless shelters, I kid you not, folks, there are people at homeless shelters in Asheville that eat better than everybody else around them. Because some of these highfalutin restaurants around here, I mean, that's where they're sending over this stuff. I mean, these guys are eating like kings and queens in these places. Don't let anybody fool you. But these discount grocery stores, the second reason is, number one, they're the end user. Number two, they never have compacting dumpsters. Ask me how I know, folks. I've been doing this a long time. You will naturally, somebody's going to say, well, why not just go to Walmart? Well, because they use compactors and they all get loaded from the inside. A lot of your bigger grocery stores are going to do that the same exact way. But if you have a lot of these discount grocery stores, they still got the old-fashioned dumpsters. And so they may not give it to you. Now, they do have a law in North Carolina that you can feed pork. You got to go through it, but the state can come on your property at any time. Homie ain't playing that. You ain't just walking up in here, government official or not. So I'm not going to sign a Faustian bargain for you to be able to just roll up on my place anytime you feel like it. So I'm not going to make that deal. I'll go to one of these secondhand places and ask them straight up. And as soon as they tell me, no, you can't do it, I'm going to go right back around and hit the dumpster anyway. You think I care? And a lot of times you ain't even got to jump in. Folks, you can get everything you need just reaching through the door, and you'll get stuff that you could literally pull out and eat. I've done the videos. You can literally pull this stuff out and eat it right off the bat. There's really nothing to it. Go ahead, son.
Well, on that note, I can't think of too many instances, unless you're trying to team up with a restaurant and they're going to be putting food off to the side. I wouldn't ask permission for these grocery stores or for these secondhand places. I would just wait till they catch me doing it and then explain to them what I'm doing, and never really phrase it in the form of a question. Just kind of let them know what's happening. Once you form it in the, as a question, then they have to give their opinion on it. And their opinion in this situation doesn't matter. Dumpster diving is perfectly legal. There was a Supreme Court case that I brought up a couple of episodes ago, talking about how it is deemed perfectly legal to do that. But I've always gotten people were always fascinated whenever I told them, hey, I'm not eating this myself, I'm actually turning it into compost. I've never had one person say, or be freaked out about it. They always thought it was cool, especially in places like Asheville. But the next one is, I know that this is a lot of people's hobbies and everything, going fishing. I mean, there's a lot of fish that people pull out of the lakes, the ocean, the rivers, whatever it may be. There's a lot of these fish that people just don't eat. So instead of maybe tossing that fish back in, if it meets the legal requirements and everything, maybe think about keeping it in using it for your fish. There was a time where my buddy came to town and we went fishing at a couple places in Texarkana, and the fish that we caught were kind of too small to really fool with for our consumption. But we filleted it, and then we gave the carcasses over to the chickens, and I have never seen cleaner bones on a fish in my life. Those chickens completely stripped everything from that fish, and even got parts of the meats that were on the face of the fish and everything like that. But for those of you guys that have husbands or sons that love fishing, I mean, I don't know how many days a 80-pound catfish could feed chickens, but I imagine it's at least a few. And depending on where you are in the South, that's a pretty common fish to pull up. Maybe not 80 pounds, but there's a lot of catfish everywhere around here. So yeah, fishing. I think that's something a lot of people overlook, but you could fish for your chicken feed if you wanted to.
Yeah, and a lot of people, when it comes to fish, like catfish, I mean, I know guys that will only eat the white part of that catfish. So all the dark meat, you could, I mean, if it lived, it can live again, like Jeff Lawton says, right through the butts of those chickens. Real quick, couple of questions. I have 10 chickens. Can I do the chicken tractor on steroids? Yes, you can. I would suggest checking out Eric Sider's YouTube channel where he did the scaled down version of that. So yes, you can absolutely do that.
You'll hold on, Dad. On that note, you'll find it under if you look up the Urban Chicken Tractor on Steroids, that's specifically what he did, and that's what it's titled under, Urban Chicken Tractor on Steroids.
Yeah, so you can scale this thing down definitely. Silver Sage, see, this is exactly what I'm hoping. It's less important about what we say than for what it makes you think or do. In Arizona, we have Market on the Move, which is a bulk vegetable place for around 10 to 12 bucks for 60 pounds. They told me I can get a tractor trailer full of vegetables for free for my animals in their distribution center. That's exactly, see, once we start giving you some of these others, you ought to be thinking like, hey, man, I thought about this other place. I mean, you'll start finding them out of the woodwork. Folks, there are so many doggone places, so many. I mean, soup kitchens, you name it, especially a soup kitchen. It's got to go in the trash when it's all done. You can make them feel better about what they're doing if they don't have to throw away food. I mean, it breaks my heart that we throw any food away when we know we have vacuum cleaners for those things. And then here's going to be my last one here. And it's one I've never really talked about before, but think about farmers markets, folks. Especially where like we have an enormous amount of farmers markets in just the Asheville area. Every town seems to have one. Well, guess what? Nobody wants to take home anything they're going to, and this is where I talked about it before, when it's a mom and pop outfit, this is where you want to make them part of your, you want to give them part of the bounty. It doesn't have to be all the time, but let's say they got stuff that's mushy. They might want to have your phone number. Let's say they have stuff they just don't want to take back home, and they can't keep it around for next week. But if they know what you're doing and you've had a conversation with them and say, hey, you know what, man, my pigs can turn that into bacon, or my chickens can turn that into eggs or meat, whatever the case may be, you may have the best source in the world, and it's going to make them, maybe they have a compost pile and they don't want to work with you, but there's a whole lot of others that might. So think about those farmers markets, or think about those people that run a CSA, whatever the case may be. There are so many options out there, just like Silver Sage mentioned a moment ago. All you got to do is just put your thinking cap on. I mean, use Chat GPT or something. I mean, I used, son, it was funny because I said, I got my list here. Let me see what Chat GPT says. You know what? This is where human intelligence is far better, far, far better than any of this stuff out there, because I got real life working knowledge. I know what works, what doesn't. And they're telling you places on there. I don't recall what it was, but all the places on there, I'm like, nope, ain't going to work with you. Ain't going to work with you. Dumpster's hidden. You don't have access. Everybody would love to go to a Whole Foods, but they got one of those dumpsters as well. And, breweries. Yeah, you can hit those guys up. So many different options out there, but let me kick the last one off to you, son.
Downside about breweries is that so is everybody else. Everybody's hitting up breweries. There's like a waiting list for breweries. And this is one that like a lot of people I think kind of overlook, but it's and this reminds, I'll give you an example after I say it, but your neighborhood or your neighbors, hitting them up. There was a while back, it was in North Carolina. I was going to pick up, was it like 2 or 4 American guinea hogs, or were they American guinea hogs?
Yeah.
Or Cooney. Yeah, American guinea hogs. And I was looking at this dude's operation, and he lived in a cul-de-sac. And every house on this cul-de-sac had like a front yard, a little bit of a backyard, and then woods behind all the houses in the cul-de-sac. And he kind of teamed up with the little cul-de-sac, and he just asked if he could set up some like permanent pig fencing through the woods, and then rotate the pigs through the entire cul-de-sac. Even people who wanted nothing to do with the pigs, he was able to rotate them through the entire cul-de-sac, and people would go out there and throw food scraps to the pigs. A cool thing about American guinea hogs is if you rotate them through woods, you don't necessarily have to feed them. They will fatten up eventually on their own. But yeah, he teamed up with his neighborhood to raise these pigs for a very, very low price. And then the kids in the neighborhood were also super fascinated with these pigs and then everything else this guy had going on, because he had a bunch of animals. And then another cool thing about American guinea hogs is that they're very good with kids and everything. You don't have to worry about them getting eaten or anything like that. But yeah, he teamed up with his neighborhood to raise these pigs for outside the cost of purchasing the pig itself. It was generally free. And he told everybody, is like, hey, feed them whatever food scraps you have other than pork, and then they'll be fine. And everybody thought it was like, it was kind of a fun little thing the entire cul-de-sac could team up on. And then at the end, he kind of shared the the profits with everybody, not the monetary profits, but like the food that he produced from those pigs. He just shared it with everybody. You could do the same thing and just run through your neighborhood and say, hey, if you start like collecting your food scraps for me, put it in a bucket, then I'll share some of these eggs with you, or I'll share some of the meat that's produced for you with you and everything. But we live in a time now where like not a whole lot of people know who their neighbor is. Sadly, I know who my neighbor is on one side, and then thankfully I know who my other neighbor is behind me and everything. But yeah, team up with the neighborhood, create a community, create a smaller community. Most people's communities are not immediately around them anymore. It's typically going to be virtual, but yeah, try to reconnect that community.
And then here's some other comments out there. I mean, it's really helpful when I see this. Like Martha said, beauty parlors for hair, small town coffee shops for grounds. I mean, that's compost material right there, y'all. I mean, we're talking about how you feed animals, but honestly, you can be feeding them from the compost. Remember, that's how you're raising your chickens. And don't think that hair doesn't make a really good compost material, because it really, really does in so many different ways. Yeah. Coffee grounds, man, you need nitrogen to kick that thing going. Okay, that's another good one right there. So many different. And folks, I'd be remiss if I didn't leave you with my honorable mention. One of my favorites, actually, believe it or not, is orchards. Orchards. Check this out. Not North Carolina, it's everywhere. Well, I'll tell you from personal experience right here in North Carolina, there's a whole lot of apple orchards in Hendersonville. Once those apples hit the ground, they cannot legally sell them. Okay. I guess they got to become deer apples. They got to become whatever, but you go out there during apple season, folks, apples everywhere. I could literally fill up my truck probably 50 times and still not make a dent in that entire orchard out there. Well, what do you think I can do with all those apples? Number one, I mean, ain't no shame in my game. If they're good, I'll eat them. I don't care if they hit the ground or not. I mean, if they're slightly blemished, who cares, man? I can do something with that. Not only will I eat them, but like William said, man, you're gonna the old-timey way of processing pigs anyway would be in the fall. Well, when are your apples coming around? In the fall. So you could be finishing your pork on apples, or maybe it's sweet potatoes, whatever the case may be in your location there. But I'm talking about a tree crop, specifically apples. You could be out there filling it up, and absolutely, yeah, you'd want to balance their diet out a little bit more, but if they're getting fattened on apples, why not? The pigs will absolutely, and even your chickens, you'll have to mash it up for them, but they'll eat them too. Ask me how I know. So there are so many different ways of going about this, folks. There are so many options out there. Look, we are at a time where the balance of what's going on in this world seems like it's on a knife's edge. And I'm not so convinced at this point that this isn't all orchestrated. I mean, it really, I got reason for saying that. Maybe I'll bring it up next week. And in fact, I'm not even so sure that Iran isn't in on it, in the whole thing. Because right now, if their populations are correct, maybe they want to thin the herd a little bit, and they got to create this. Whatever the case may be, at the end of the day, it's kind of hard to starve out a person that has about 50 different ways in which he can feed his animals and his family. You dig what I'm saying? And I'm saying him, but I'm meaning everybody, man, woman, it doesn't matter. We're going to have to be thinking creatively, folks, in a big, big way. Son, anything else to add?
There's a lot that we did not include on the list that, like the only limitation is really what you can think of or what your imagination is. Especially with the orchards, each region is going to have their own version of it. If you're out in the arid West, somebody just mentioned mesquite. Mesquite is a good option. I don't know how well lemons or oranges would do depending on where you are, but there's peach groves, there's apple orchards, there's all kinds of options. No matter where you are, there is some sort of solution. If you got animals living like in the natural ecosystem, there's some way to feed your own animals for free around there. So
yeah, I guarantee it. If it can be done in a little small town Texas, folks, I mean, barely a gas station. If it can be done there, if we can do it in these kinds of places, it can be done anywhere. So you have no excuse. All right, y'all. I want to thank everybody for checking us out today. It's crazy world, but hopefully we're providing some solutions. Till next time, stay alert.
Stay alive.
The knowledge rings with roots that run deep. Wisdom from soul and permaculture streams. Let the ideas unfold. I'm grooving with the truth. Feeling nature's good. and harmony begin in the cycle of life. For the magic's alive to the